Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Feels like it's been a long time since we've been together. I know that I've had a very busy weekend. As you can see from this space around me, I'm in a different place, and that is because we had to kind of pack up all of our anchored gear and move it to a place in our home where we can house this for as long as it's needed. So I want to say thank you to Vince and my boys for the hard work that they did this weekend in just transforming a space and giving us a place where we can have anchored and where it won't be interfering with anything that our family needs in our home. So from our home to yours, I just want to say happy Monday. And with that, it's time to get started. Let's get anchored. This morning, I want to start with something that I've had a lot of fun with. I want you to look at this piece of paper. It's a solid piece of paper, one piece of paper. I have backups here if I need it, but we're going to talk about just this one piece of paper today. How many out there think that I can fit through this piece of paper? That means that Shellie can get through this paper. So I'm going to ask you, if you think that I can get through this paper, from wherever you are, just give me a thumbs up. If you think that I'm going to have a hard time, I invite you just to give a thumbs down. And you see, when I look at this piece of paper, just like it does look virtually impossible that I would be able to fit through this. But sometimes we have to change the way that we look at something. So I'm going to just take a moment to change what this looks like. Folded it. We also have access to different tools. Today, my tool is this. I'm going to make a couple of cuts and adjustments. And slowly, this paper changes shape. Now this is a really cool activity to try on your own. And so in the comment section of this video, you're going to find a link to the instructions because I think it would be a fun thing for you to try at home. But I'm just making some adjustments to that piece of paper. And I want you to see that I'm not changing this piece of paper at all. Except for, the cuts that I'm making. Here's where the really cool something happens. These cuts help me show you that I can go from something that I think we all thought was impossible to something very, very possible. One more cut. And then what I need to do is open up this piece of paper and look at this. That piece of paper suddenly has an opening, and this opening, well, it's big enough to go around me. Look at this. I am stepping through that paper. You thought it was impossible, but I did it. I'm through. And I'm just going to hang this here as a reminder that sometimes things look impossible. But that's because we're only looking at it from one way. So while we have this that seemed impossible, but now you saw was possible. We're going to take those eyes and that kind of thinking as we open God's Word together this morning. This morning, I want to share a brief story that we find in Genesis. In fact, we find it in Genesis 18, and it's a story about Abraham and Sarah. Now, if you know Abraham and Sarah, you know that they had prayed together to God over and over and over again to bless them with a child. And Abraham had received a very special promise from God, a promise where God had said that they were going to have more children than there were stars in the sky and sand on the ground. And yet, in today's story, we find 100-year-old Abraham and Sarah, and still they have not had a child. Now, in this story, Abraham is sitting outside of his tent, so outside of his home, and he's approached by 3 visitors. And those visitors, they come to spend time with him. And Abraham does everything that a good host should do. He organizes food. So he had curds and milk, and he had his servants prepare some meat, and he had Sarah bake some bread, and they ate together. And those visitors then asked Abraham, "Where's your wife? Where is your wife Sarah?" they asked him. And Abraham said, well, she's in the tent. And then they said, or one of the visitors said this, "I will surely return to you about this time next year." So this visitor is saying, "I'm going to come again, but I'm going to come in about a year, because at that time, Sarah will have a son." A whole year from then. Now Sarah had been listening. She had been listening to what these men were talking about, and when she heard that visitor say that she was going to have a son, the Bible tells us that Sarah laughed to herself. She laughed, and she said, "I'm too old. Abraham is too old. How will this be possible?" In a way, she was laughing because she was thinking, it's impossible. But that visitor then said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh? Why did she say that she's too old?" You see, that visitor was really God. And the visitor then said these words, and these are the words that I want us to hear in all of our different places today. Is anything too hard for the Lord? Is anything impossible to God? Now, if we fast forward, we will know that absolutely Abraham and Sarah had a baby, a little boy that they named Isaac. And they named him Isaac because that word means laughter, because they remembered that they laughed when they first heard it. This is just one story of many. God's Word is filled with stories that help us remember that we may see things as impossible, but with God, there is no such thing as impossible. With God, everything is possible. One of my favorite Bible verses from Philippians says, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." I can do many things that I would think are impossible because the God who makes those things possible has promised to always be with me. So as we head into this day, let's adjust our focus. Let's adjust our eyes and our hearts to remember that we serve a God who can do things in such amazing ways that he can make a way where we can't see something possible. I hope wherever you are that you will be able to just sense that that God who is beyond all of our comprehension is with you today. and He joins us together still as community. So even though it feels impossible to connect because we are being kept so separate, even the fact that we have this technology is making that possible. So have a great day.